Hi, everybody. We're here today behind the screens with Angie Taylor. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, Angie and David.
Hi,
How are you?
Happy New Year.
Yeah,
Happy
Happy New
New Year.
Year.
Yes, this is our first event in January 2021. So, as usual, we'll get David to give us a quick introduction about KnownOrigin, the platform, and the Behind the Screen series, and all the wonderful work they do at KnownOrigin. So, David, off to you.
Well, Happy New Year, Angie. Happy New Year, Serena. My name's David Moore. I'm one of three co-founders of KnownOrigin. KnownOrigin is a digital arts marketplace that empowers the creative community to showcase and sell the work they produce. We've got one of the most exciting communities in the space. We've been doing a series called Behind the Screens for almost 6 months now, and we essentially get to meet the artists and get to talk to them about the work that they do, their inspirations, and the things that they produce. It's a really great way for us to put a spotlight on the artists, put them at the forefront, because ultimately this whole crypto art scene doesn't exist without the creators. And KO is all about bringing the creators to the forefront. And tonight we have Angie Taylor. Me and Angie have been on a few panels together discussing art and crypto. We've also been chatting offline about life, which is always good to do as well. It's not always in the thick of it. So I hope we touch on some of those things. This is going to be a great one tonight. And if you've got any questions, reach out to us on Twitter at knownorigin_.io and jump onto knownorigin.io, check out the artwork, go on the journal, see what else is happening in the community. I'm going to jump backstage and leave you guys to it. So have a great one. Good to see you, Angie. Let's catch up again soon. Here's for tonight's Behind the Screens. Enjoy, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you, David.
Cheers, David. Bye. See you soon.
Here we go. So, Angie Taylor tonight behind the screen. So excited.
Yeah, me too. Nervous
How are
excitement.
you?
I'm good.
How's the new
yeah.
year started off?
Yeah, I'm glad that I'm just back into normal routine again. I'm not really one for big special occasions because I like things just to be, normal. So I'm quite glad to be back into working again and just into my usual routine.
Yeah. I agree with you. Sometimes it's nice to get back to that routine. It's nice to be on a break, but at the same time, it's good to be back in motion. So tonight we're going to be discussing your work, and I've been looking through some of the recent drops that you had on KO. And to start off the conversation, I wanted to talk about these characters that you've been portraying in your works. And to me, at first impact, by seeing the work, I have been thinking about the theme of identity. And those for me have been quite strongly, portrayed in your work. So I just wanted to ask you, how do you start developing the characters that you have in your work?
It's funny that you say that because identity isn't really a word that I'd kind of really thought of to describe what my work is about, but really it is. And sometimes it's really nice when people give you some information about your work that you hadn't really realized before. And a lot of my work is influenced by music, and there is a great song called Identity by X-Ray Specs. And in it, the first line is, identity is the crisis, can't you see? And for me, that really is a crisis, like the crisis of identity, sort of always questioning yourself. Being a misfit as well. Misfits are a big theme in my work as well. And I kind of identify as a misfit because I kind of grew up, with weird fuzzy hair and glasses from the age of 3 and had Asperger's and ADHD and just never really fitted in. So a lot of my work is based around that theme, either championing other misfits or trying to express in a way the difficulties I have or the way that I see things in life, I suppose, is the best way I can describe it. But there's all sorts of things feed into my work. So I think because of ADHD, like one day I might be really passionate about one theme, and then the next day I'm completely turned onto another theme, and the other theme kind of takes a back seat. But they kind of are cyclical, so they kind of come back round. Quite often I have, a few works on the go at the same time, and I jump from one to the other. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. No, it's wonderful just to have a conversation about the work with the artist, because often, what you see, you create your own stories, but then when you talk to the person that actually create the work, then I think that's when the real engagement starts, when you really get to know what you're looking at and how to experience it. One of my other questions for you was, how do you think would be best to experience your work? And I just wanted to touch on that because I've seen you've created work in different ways, like in 2D, but also you've been doing VR sculptures, and I've seen some of your latest work as well, being this can of lager. And that was so fascinating. And so we're going to be talking about that in a moment. But if you were going to display your work or show it to somebody, what do you think would be the best way of enjoying your work?
I think galleries are probably the best place for my work, because quite often they're not the kind of pieces that you'd maybe want on your living room wall, because, some of them are controversial, some of them are a bit in your face, and particularly the animations are designed to be a little bit uncomfortable at times. So I think galleries are a really great way to experience them. Online galleries, also metaverse galleries. And again, it depends on the medium of the particular piece. Some of my digital paintings I can imagine being framed on someone's wall, but the animations are really I see them more as a kind of performance piece. So either as part of an exhibition in a gallery or as part of a collection in a digital frame, I suppose. Could be. Yeah.
And in terms of like 3D, have you ever seen your work like reproduced in a 3D environment? I'm just curious because now, there's so many different metaverse and 3D space that you can enter. And I was curious to know, because your work in a way is so immersive, those characters, they're so big and they're like huge sculptures that you could stand up close and feel so little next to it, in a way that's the feeling I get. So I was curious to know if you were thinking about seeing your work in such environments.
I actually built a environment last year when I got a residency at Fusebox in Brighton doing VR, and I built an environment in Unity using VR tools. So I used VR tools to build the 3D environment, and then I put it together in Unity. And that's a full 3D environment that you can go into and you can explore, and my sculptures are inside there. And it's called Scattered Mind, and it's about the different places that I go to in my own mind where I either feel safe or I can feel angry or I can feel whatever I want to feel. And there's a huge giant redwood tree in the center it's a woodland. And as you go in, it's nice and peaceful and there's birds singing and everything. And then you come across this huge tree, but giant redwood tree. And there's a doorway and you go inside the tree. And then when you go, there's a spiral staircase that you go up inside the tree. And then off each branch, there's a different world. So off the first branch is the classroom of misfits. And it's a classroom filled with pupils sitting at desks. Some of them are kind of ordinary looking people. And then some of them are my spiky kind of sculptures. And you can do things like pick up bits of paper and throw them at the teacher and things like that. But then there's also books that you can open and read about things like one of the projects that I was really interested in then was about the witch trials particularly in Scotland. So there's a book in there that you can open and read about the witch trials. So I built it, and then at the end of the residency, I kind of didn't really have anywhere to take it, so it's still there. I've got this Unity environment.
Is it visible? Like, can we access it?
Yeah, I mean, I could. I haven't got it published online anywhere, but I can send someone. It's like a game, so it's like an executable file. So yeah, you can open it, and you can, if you've got a VR headset, you can go in and you can move around, teleport around, and visit the different places.
I think we should show it.
Yeah,
I
really want to, but we need somewhere that can allow us to tokenize Unity environments. So that would be a great thing.
That's a nice shout out to everyone.
I have thought of rebuilding it in Somnium Space or CryptoVoxels or VR chat, but I'm kind of at that stage where I don't know really which would be the best way to go in terms of those different environments and which would be the best for that space.
We'll see, but definitely I think we should show that environment if possible.
We did do an exhibition at the end of the year in Brighton, so where the public came and people tried it out and visited my environment, and that was really good. It went down really well. So yeah, I'd like to do something else with it.
Yeah, we'll see when we're going to be allowed again to walk into public places and have such experiences as well in IRL. You said in your recent artist spotlight that music in a way enhances the way we communicate, which I think you wonderfully described the way communication works, in that statement. And you also said that language sometimes can be restrictive and primitive, which is true. Art, on the contrary, can go beyond that. So my question to you is, how do you wish for your art to communicate, or what do you wish for your art to communicate to the viewer?
In terms of how it communicates, what I try to do and what I aspire to do is to communicate in the way that, animals and even plants communicate, which is, I see it as a much higher state of consciousness than we as humans have. Like, they communicate in an instinctive and subconscious way almost. They don't need words. And to me, words seem like such like I said, a primitive way of, it's almost like a code. Because we've forgotten how to communicate instinctively, we have to fabricate this language that we use to communicate. So I'd like people to pick up things from my work on a subconscious level and maybe feel things rather than think things. And that's what I try to do, is mess around with people's expectations a little bit so that they kind of maybe get things that they don't get from looking at it straight away, almost. I don't know if that really answers.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. And I wonder, maybe we can start showing some of your work on screen now, because I think it would be nice to discuss how these actually works in the way the work is reproduced as well. Because I think one of the interesting aspects about those live stream is that we get to look at the work and really touch on some of the aspects that you may not encounter. Sometimes it's nice just to let the viewer get in relationship with the work, but at the same time, this is kind of like getting onto the next level and getting deeper into the meanings of the work and understanding from the artist's point of view how the work was created or what the meanings are. And if that's okay with you, I just wanted to get some of your recent work on screen. And
it's funny because when I was at art college and the tutors used to ask me to talk about the meaning of my work, I would flatly refuse to talk about it. And I used to think, why should I have to tell people what my work's about? If they don't understand, then, you know. And it's only in recent years that I've seen the value in actually doing that. And then it allows me to question my work as well. It's like, and that's the value that I didn't see in it before. I almost saw it as a test before, rather than an actual question of interest that is there designed to actually make you think in a more constructive way, I suppose.
Yeah, sometimes it feels difficult to talk about the work, but can you see this one now? Cool. So I would love for you to tell us more about this work, because I think it's so interesting. So when I first went onto the KnownOrigin page and I saw these kind of beer, and then I read the story here on the side about it, I was very curious to talk to you about it, because it's interesting that you've reproduced this, and I wonder what it meant for you to create the work and also to experience that in your life, you know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it might be quite an experience.
I mean, when I reproduced it, I really wanted to do it as a 3D object, because I wanted there to be a reveal. Like, you know, when you first saw it, it just looks like a reproduction of a can of lager with a bit of my style on it. And the style of the can, I really, you know, the front of the can, I really love, because I love that kind of 70s graphic design. But the most hideous thing about this particular lager was that they used to use like scantily clad women to advertise it. And it was supposed to make it glamorous. And that's the thing, you turn it around, and on my can, you know, on the real cans, it's usually a woman draped across, like you'll get some of them draped across a kitchen sink with a towel, like she's just been drying the dishes, but she's posing for a sexy photograph for her husband or something. And they were ridiculous. And then they'd say something like, but like, Deirdre's finished washing up, or, you know, or Jane's ready for the next chore, or whatever. You know, they were really bad. So I thought I really want to do a pastiche of that kind of tells the truth about alcohol, particularly in Scotland, and what it does to people, and how a lot of housewives are really a victim of alcohol, not just by being on the can, but actually by consuming the alcohol as well. So I wanted it to kind of, you know, at first glance appear like, you know, oh, this is a bit of fun. It's a 3D object, and it's a can, and it's lager, and it's nice 70s graphics. But then you turn it around and you see the, you know, the truth, which is people drink to get drunk. You know, they don't drink to be glamorous. They don't drink to. So that's it, really. It's really a kind of almost like a joke, but a comment on that. And it's something that me and my friends were all victims of growing up in Scotland. A lot of us spent our 20s getting completely drunk every weekend. And, you know, that was how we coped with what was thrown at us. Growing up in Scotland as a kind of, well, as a woman, as a gay woman, and as a gay punk woman was quite challenging. And yeah, that's how we coped, was by drinking buckets of lager.
I think that probably, you know, most of us went through periods in our life where things got a bit, you know, tough. And so there's different ways of coping with that. And
I suppose the difference in Scotland is sorry to interrupt, but I think the difference in Scotland is it's seen as a proud part of your culture. It's almost like, you know, something to be championed, and I kind of just wanted to turn that on its head a bit as well.
it's definitely interesting to see all of that captured in a single NFT artwork, because you get so many details about, an actual cultural and historical fact, your personal life, and then a bit of your style and your graphic, into that. So that to me was one of my favorite work from your KnownOrigin collection, because it definitely adds to what you create. So that was interesting to me to explore, and thank you for talking to us about that. I also want to tell everyone, because I see so many friends in the chat watching the live, so I just wanted to thank everybody for being with us today. But also, if you do have any questions, please feel free to share it with us. We'll be very happy to discuss. I'm going to move on to my other question now. But yes, as I said, feel free to share your comments and thoughts and questions if you want. So again, in your recent spotlight, you said that art shouldn't be classified by simply being called, with its name, but simply being called with its name, which is art. So you're saying that it shouldn't be called like crypto art or contemporary art or things like that, if I got that correctly.
I think, yeah, I can't remember saying that, but
Oh, okay. Maybe that was my interpretation. But then I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts about the contemporary art scene, and how do you see your work in relation to the current crypto art movement?
yeah, I guess what I was maybe trying to say was that I see it all as art.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people say, is that art? And is that art? And is this art? And I think anything that people make, which is an expression of themselves, is art. It could be something someone cooks. It could be a song someone writes. It could be some embroidery or knitting or sculpture, woodwork. There's all sorts of things that come under the umbrella of art. I guess what a lot of people get confused about is confusing fine art and art. So they talk about the difference between art and design. And I kind of see there's a big difference between fine art and design, but both are art, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's the way, I think, probably what I was trying to say. What was the question again?
I was going to ask you, how do you feel about the contemporary art scene and the crypto art movement in relation to your work?
Well, the crypto art movement has completely opened the whole art scene to a whole new group of people who I don't think would have ever been able to be a part of the contemporary art scene before crypto art. Either because they'd been told they weren't good enough, or they didn't have the confidence, or they didn't have the resources, or they just didn't have a way of getting their art shown. And crypto art's opened that up, and which is amazing. And I think I'd be creating art, but I don't think I would be showing art if it wasn't for crypto art. I'd probably just be doing what I was doing before, which was making art but not showing anyone, and just doing it for my own entertainment. I'd kind of given up on ever, like, all I wanted to ever do was be an artist. And then I went to art college, and that completely ruined it for me.
Really?
Because, yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, because it was such a disappointment. I had this idea that it would be this free-thinking, really cool place where people just cared about creativity and nothing else. And then I went to art college, and it was just basically a factory to produce people that were creating the kind of work that everyone wanted to see at that time. And it was very conservative, very a lot of nepotism, and it was just nothing of what I expected. And also, my confidence just plummeted when I got to art college, because I'd been at school, I was like the best at art in the school, and then suddenly I went to art college, and everyone was better than me. And I just kind of like shut down and thought, oh God. And then when I left art college, I just thought, well, I need to earn money and there's no way I'm ever going to be successful, because they basically told me I wasn't good enough. Or that's kind of the message that I got from art college. So I thought, oh, well, I'll just get a job. So I thought, what can I do with a sculpture degree? So I ended up doing prop making. And through prop making, I got into motion graphic design because I was working in television. And that's how I got into doing digital art and design. But I was
But
never
that's an
really...
interesting journey that you went through.
Yeah, it was. And I don't regret any of it. I'm really glad that I did that. But I was never a designer. I'm not a very good designer. I'm not very good at doing what other people want me to do. So people would say, oh, can you make it look like this? And I'd be like, yeah. And then they'd get it back and they'd be like, oh. I just put my... Yeah. It would be Angie-fied, you know. And I just couldn't. I'd try and make it, you know, how they wanted to make it to look, but it never quite did. It always looked a bit grubby or dirty or grungy or punky or whatever. So I kind of always felt like a bit of a cheat doing design, and I ended up just doing a lot of teaching because I felt more comfortable teaching it than actually doing it. And I've got a really good technical knowledge of motion graphics, so I know the software inside out. I'm a real tech geek, so if I'm going to do something, I need to learn how to do it 100%. So I ended up learning After Effects inside out. I loved After Effects and ended up writing books on After Effects and being a demo artist for Adobe, which again was not something I hadn't planned to do, but I'm one of these people that just says yes to everything. So someone had said, oh, will you do a demo for Adobe? Yes. Will you write a book? Yes.
Yes. That's the spirit, you know. That's how you keep progressing, and that's how you keep learning. And
it's also how you end up having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to get back to doing art for art's sake. And that's why I love crypto art so much. It's given me not just a platform for doing that, but a fantastic community to do it among. I was quite nervous about getting into crypto art because I saw these really cool people doing stuff. And I thought, I'm so old now, I don't know if I'll really fit in, but I thought I'll give it a go anyway. And everyone has just been absolutely amazing. I feel like I've made more friends in the last year than I've made in my whole life. It's fantastic. And that's the best thing about crypto art, is all those delicious people that are saying hello at the moment.
Yes, that's so many of them. And I love every one of you. There's actually a question for you from Eta, saying, hi, Angie.
Hi, Eta.
What training is on offer to help traditional artists start creating crypto art, which is also a very practical question.
Well, funnily enough, I have a little free course on my website at creativecabin.co.uk, which is just a kind of intro into it. And then that leads into, I've pointed people then to DCL Blogger, who's got a really good course on crypto art. But I know that Sparrow's got a really good course on crypto art. And I think Ocular Delusion, Karen, has also
in the chat.
Yeah, I think she's just... and I haven't...
Yes, here we go.
Yeah.
Random things is how we all ended up in crypto art. Yes.
Yeah.
Most of us. It'll be interesting to hear the stories. I love to make a documentary where we hear short stories on how we get into crypto art. I think that would be, that will make history.
Yeah. Well, I think there are some people working on some documentary films about crypto art.
I heard of.
Yes. So watch this space. Yeah, I think it would be really great to have more of that, more people on film talking about the journey. Like there's people who were there right at the beginning that I'd really like to hear more from, that I think I don't know, there's a kind of disconnect somewhere. There's some of the people that were there right at the beginning, I think, are maybe not as involved anymore. And it'd be really nice to hear back from them again about how their journey is going and what they think about crypto art at the moment. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, these movements started with very few people in a way. And then it sort of expanded and went on, and it allowed all of us to meet and create new places, virtual places where we could all connect with each other. And especially now with all that happened with the pandemic, I think it feels so intimate in a way, because we're discussing about your work, which is something so personal, and we are among others that enjoy art, enjoy being in this crypto art space, and also support ways such as KnownOrigin of being on such a platforms that allows artists to be visible, and also to make a living from what they do. So it's extremely interesting to being involved in such a movement, because it's not just an art movement. I think it goes beyond that.
Absolutely. And what I love about it is the platforms, the people who are involved in the galleries, all are part of the gang. It's not like you've got a gang of artists, then you've got the platforms, then you've got the galleries. It's like everyone's in it together and everyone's kind of trying to make it work together. And then everyone, it's almost like there's little family squabbles here and there, but everyone gets on eventually and works it out. It's a really nice kind of family environment.
Which is very weird, because it barely even, ever happen, in the real world. Everyone seems to sort of work in a very isolated way. But in this one, it feels like it is possible to communicate in different ways and to be part of the same ecosystem.
I think it's because it attracts people who are naturally willing to take risks. Because you're not in this space if you're not willing to take a risk. And
that's true.
In any other walk of life, you're usually amongst people who want security and want safety. Whereas in crypto art, you're amongst people who are willing to throw all of that away and see what happens. And that's what makes it exciting. And that's what makes it volatile as well. But it's also what makes people, like, people are willing to have an argument, but then make friends again. So,
yeah, I think that's the thrill about crypto art and the crypto art space in general. There was a question from Luca asking, given the trend of ETH, which has been sort of going really, really up lately, do you think that artists will be the new billionaires of the world?
No. No, because I don't think, well, I don't know. I mean, I know that some artists really care about wealth, but I don't. And I think a lot of artists that I know don't. And I think we're naturally not very good at managing wealth either. So I think, I don't think artists will be the people that make the most money out of this space, unfortunately. Same as everything else. I think middlemen will be, unless we change the current system.
Yeah, that's an interesting view on that. As you mentioned, to communicate, what is the best way besides Twitter to interact with each other, to get in touch with this scene?
That's a tricky one. Twitter's really the only thing that I use at the moment. I kind of use Discord when I have to, but I really don't like it. And Telegram, I don't find feels natural to me either. There's something about the Twitter timeline, the way that it is exactly where you left it when you go back to it, that I really like. And it really kind of, I like the limitation of Twitter as well, that you have to limit it to so many characters, because that forces you to be creative within those limitations. I hate the fact it's, a social media like Silicon Valley investor-led company that runs it and everything. I wish there was an open source version that I could use. I was really happy when it was just email lists and user groups and people doing their own blogs. I loved it back then. And everyone was doing blogs, so you would just have RSS feeds and have an RSS reader, and that would be your communication, and you could respond to blogs. And the great thing is then it's, the responses would come up on other people's websites. I don't know if we can ever get back to a sort of a system like that where everyone has their own autonomous peer-to-peer kind of communication and blogging, but that's what I would really like.
Yeah, I think that time in a way has passed, even though it was really nice to be on MySpace or, those social media back then where you had your own blog and followers and you could feel in a very, you could really experience that sense of community, which in a way it is present in the crypto art space, but as it's expanding, it's difficult to preserve.
Yeah.
But maybe it's also a good thing that more people are getting involved and this becomes an actual global movement. But at the same time, you might miss that connection with others. So, but places like this maybe are a good way to find that intimacy and at the same time, meet new people in the space.
And also the metaverse. I mean, Crypto Voxels has been great. The WIP meetup is a really good place to meet other people and actually feel like you're talking more one-to-one. And Scent, I really like the idea of Scent, but I find the interface difficult. So it's kind of, I want to write some regular articles on Scent, but I kind of try and log in and I get stuck logging in. So I end up giving up and then going back to Twitter. But really, if I put everything that I write on Twitter into my blog, I would have a really great blog. And if everyone did that, they would all have their own really great blogs. But nobody blogs anymore because they all express themselves on social media instead.
And everything's so fast, everything comes and goes in a few seconds.
Yeah. But I mean, if you
only
use
stays longer if people really, really engage with your content, but it's difficult.
Yeah, and you need to kind of keep it regularly updated. But if everyone used an RSS reader and had an RSS link on their website, potentially that could become a thing again. It's just because people have got into the habit of the way that I express myself is by going to social media. If you suddenly go, the way I express myself is writing my blog, you could change your whole life. And if everyone did that, it could change the whole face of communication. There's no reason you can't go back. Yeah. The only reason we've moved away from that is because the social media companies made it easy for people that didn't have websites to communicate like they had a blog. And then everyone started using it.
And it's the fact that you can share it and it's so fast, you can just click on it and it's done. So you can replicate content instantly without even thinking about making content.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, not everyone wants to make content. That's the problem. Like I said, it's a minority of people who have websites and have blogs. So social media fills that in for the other people, I think.
Yeah. Probably things have changed as well. The way new generations are approaching the space onto the internet, everything is so fast. So in a way, we are sort of dragged into this movement of being, constantly moving forward. There's a nice question coming from Ben when you were discussing about the risk of being in this space. I've had huge issues onboarding the risk adverse. What steps do you think could be taken to mitigate that?
Don't bother. If they don't want to join, they don't have to. if people are risk adverse, it's probably better that they don't join, because you are taking a risk by, by getting into crypto art. You're risking, not doing what you would be doing if you weren't doing crypto art, I suppose, which could potentially be more secure. And you're dealing with a unknown currency, really. So you have to be willing to take a little bit of a risk. I'm actually fairly risk averse in life. Like when, if you're talking about things like, I don't like having debts. I like to always pay my bills, and, I'm quite careful about things like that. So I don't really like taking risks, but I suppose I didn't really have anything left to lose because my business kind of collapsed. And I'm at that age where I know that there's no point in worrying about things, because whatever happens is going to happen, and you'll deal with it in one way or another. So I think you shouldn't force people if they are very risk averse. And if they're slightly risk averse and just want a little bit of persuading, I think just like introduce them to people who are from a similar background. So,
so they could share the experience.
Yeah, maybe make a tweet saying, who would consider themselves risk adverse out of crypto artists? Do you feel like you're taking a risk? So asking more questions on Twitter and getting more feedback and starting more conversations about it, I think would probably be the best thing to do. And sort of putting that in front of people allows them to then make their own decision about it. Because I don't think you should ever push someone into doing something they're not comfortable with, because then if it all goes tits up, you're the one that gets the blame for it.
Sparrow sharing something very sweet, saying, I think it was the best decision you've made, Angie. We're really lucky to have you, and I second that.
Thank you very much.
There's a question for you from Stranger Objects saying, can you please elaborate a bit more on your usual process? Not technical aspects, maybe more from the cognitive approach.
Are you sure you want to know that?
I think with these questions, and also Ben is thanking you for answering the previous question about risk, which I think it was a really good bit of advice. But yeah, going back to this one, I also think it's time for us to show some other work that maybe we can elaborate these questions.
Yeah, I'll keep that question in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to get onto share screen mode now and get those comments and questions coming. We have about 10 minutes to go. And I want to now show you these work by Angie that also got my attention. Can you see it on screen? Just want to make sure it's visible as I'm sharing my screen.
I can see it, so.
Wonderful, cool. So these work, when I saw it, it really got my attention. I kept looking at it for like good 5 minutes, and I felt all different sorts of emotions and feeling, and it made me laugh, and it made me feel slightly sad, and it made me think about my life in London, and also a lot of other stuff, and I was curious to listen to the story of these work.
That's really
I
nice.
read it on KnownOrigin, and I thought the question that was asked as well about the cognitive approach about creating work, it can go quite nicely with the way you develop these one and the story behind it.
Okay, yeah, I kind of, this whole thing started out back in the 80s. I did a sculpture of actually the four wise monkeys. So I did see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, and do no evil. And I always wanted to redo it as an animation and to bring more into it than with sculpture. Things are really fixed, and it's almost like it can only have one dimension, even though it's 3-dimensional. Whereas with animation, you can bring in all these different things. So I'd always been wanting to redo it as separate animations. And it's something that really made a big impact in me when I was a kid, was that whole treat other people how you want to be treated yourself. So, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. And if you stick to those simple rules, you're basically, going to be quite a nice person. So it's always been something that I've really kind of connected with. And I loved the idea of the 3 monkeys as well. And then I was watching, when COVID hit, the way that I dealt with it was by watching lots of horrible crime programs that I always swore that I would never watch. Like my mum used to watch them, and I used to say, how can you watch them? They're so horrible. And then when COVID hit, it was almost like it was so depressing. I needed to watch something even worse to make it feel copable. And every single program was about a woman being killed by, some horrible predator or a family member. And I thought, and my partner said, God, it's surprising there's any women left in the world. and I thought, when I was thinking about doing this sculpture, and I thought, I really want the See No Evil to be about that, and it was about women being seen as trash. A lot of these women are put in dumpsters and trash cans, and so it was kind of what tends to happen with me is I've got all these ideas in my head, and they're all kind of jumbled, different bits of ideas. Oh, that'd be nice. Oh, that'd be. And then one day I'm out on a dog walk, and I suddenly have this kind of coming together of everything. And it always happens when I'm out walking my dog. And I suddenly thought, that's what it needs to be: a naked woman, and she needs to be falling out of a bin, and she needs to be on display like she's some kind of like. It's almost like these women are precious, but they're precious in terms of their prey. So they're hunted, they're seen as a precious item, but then they're taken and just discarded like trash. So that was why she was on the kind of glass table with all her kind of bits on display and stuff. It's about lots of different things around that kind of subject. But I always like to kind of mask things with a bit of humor as well. So there is a kind of humorous kind of
and the colors you used, I think that's what brings a lot of vivid and real, context to it. I don't know, it really makes me think about, yes, as you described it, all these very difficult situations but put on display. We now look at drama, we look at things, and we see it as entertainment when it's so dramatic. But we enjoy it in a very weird way. And so art sometimes really makes us reflect on that. And the way you've created that work is so fascinating because it makes, sort of lifts you up, and in a way it takes you down.
Yeah, I wanted her to seem
that you created. It definitely makes you feel that way. It's kind of like having a laugh, but then at the same time making you sad.
Yeah. So because I wanted it kind of to be for her to, even though she was trash, be empowered as well, almost like taking the power back. And that's, I think, to do with seeing, women at peep shows and like, in Amsterdam. I one time I was in Amsterdam and I was working at a trade show, and this guy said to me, "Come on, I'll show you around all the peep shows." And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, oh my God. It was just like, I spent a night with this guy going around the peep shows and just like hating it, but being absolutely fascinated by like on one hand, the power the woman had over them, but the ultimate power that they had over her. And it's like about that as well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to see all of these in a work of art.
Yeah,
And
it is
yeah, sorry,
funny.
go.
It's really funny. Like when I'm out on a dog walk and all the things come together like that, I'm like, oh, I've got to get home quick, because like with ADHD, it's like if you don't get it done at that time, the next day
Yeah.
you'll have another idea and then you'll go off the boil and that won't happen. So I
And that's
really
gone. Yeah.
I'm like, I really have to do it. And then
Yeah.
the third one is my next project, actually. That's like, I've got a couple of collaborations that I'm working on at the moment, but my next solo project is the third in the series of See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Speak No Evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna ask you as my final question, what's coming up next for you? But yes, this is definitely very exciting, and we're going to be looking forward to see the third piece coming to life.
The other interesting thing is the coping with stress one that I've done on KnownOrigin.
Oh yes.
It's in reaction to a reaction I had to that piece. So someone advised me on how I could have made her more sexually attractive. And I was quite horrified by that people thought that the main reason I'd made that person naked was to attract people sexually, sort of as a wank object. It really wasn't. So I thought, right, the next piece I'm gonna do, how can I make her unattractive to people who want her to be a sex object? So I thought, I know, I'll put a big feminist symbol on her t-shirt. So that's what I did. That she didn't have the feminist symbol on her t-shirt, and I thought, right, that's what I'm going to do, because then the only people that will like her are people that like feminism, and the others will go, oh no, oh she's nice, oh no, she's a feminist.
That's interesting how this piece came as a response to what has been, communicated to you. And it's interesting that you responded so, ironically to that comment, because I think it's so important to be honest, with what we feel and think about stuff.
Sometimes it's easier to be honest through the artwork than it is through words as well.
Yeah, I really admire when people manage to do that. It's brave, and I think it also, communicates the courage that you have and the power you have as an artist to communicate these kind of things to others. So it's wonderful that you've done it.
It's probably why it hasn't sold, though.
But it doesn't matter, because
no, it doesn't.
It's pure, spirit coming from you. And I think, after this conversation, I'm sure there will be people looking at that with different eyes.
It's funny because I used to DJ when I was doing prop making, and when I DJ'd, if the idea is to kind of get as many people on the dance floor as possible. And I used to, when I got lots of people on the dance floor, I would deliberately play a record that I knew would absolutely clear the dance floor, because I like to it was like too easy to get, to kind of get people on the dance floor. So you'd kind of want to then get them off the dance floor as well. People used to say to me, why are you playing that? Because everyone would be like, oh no, and run off the dance floor. But I suppose that's why I've maybe never been as successful at things as I could have been. Yes.
Yeah. But sometimes, being unsuccessful, it means being successful, not just for yourself, but for others as well.
Yes.
It's just the way you look at things. So it's just a matter of perspective.
Yeah. And you can't, some people can make things for a market. Some people can design stuff and like, this is what those people want to see, so I'll make it. And I can't do that. So, technically I can do those things, but as soon as I start making them, I'll go, oh, I'll just do this to it and just do that to it. And then it would eventually
give it a little twist.
Yeah, it wouldn't end up looking anything like it.
Yeah, but that's what we love of you, Angie, and I think
Thank
that's what
you.
the audience likes to see from you as well. So this has been such a wonderful conversation. I can't believe we've already been through an hour. I can't
I
believe
know.
it.
I know.
Feels like 5 minutes ago that we started talking about your work. But it's been wonderful to see so many of you attending, and I would love for you to share this video and share Angie's work, because I think it's really priceless. And all the stories that Angie's been telling us today, I think they've really enhanced the work. And yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
you. It's so nice to talk to you, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your support and Known Origin's support and all those people out there. I love you all. And I mean that. I'm not just saying it. I do really love everyone. It's fantastic.
Thank you. No, honestly, it's been a pleasure, and thank you everybody for being here with us. If you do have questions, keep tweeting these videos. So it's going to be available on Twitter, on KnownOrigin page, and also MoCDA on Facebook and YouTube, both channels. Feel free to share it, and we'll meet you again in a couple of weeks' times with another Behind the Screens. Keep following Angie on KnownOrigin. There's a link scrolling just here down the bottom. And we look forward to see your piece coming up soon. So we'll watch this space.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
See you soon, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.